Ben Higgins, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I'm pumped to be here. This is great.
Hey, I'm really excited you're here today, Ben. And you and I had a pretty fun conversation before we hit record here today, but I suppose we're going to come around to that again. But
Mm.
as we dive in today, let's just start here. Give us the backstory on what led you to The Bachelor. I mean, from what I've read, correct me if I'm wrong, you even felt a certain level of call to do so. Take us in.
Yeah, I there's so much to it that I've tried to process since that time. Growing up as a kid, I always desired a seat at the table. You can maybe call that like seeking attention. You can say that I liked to be involved. You could call it a bunch of different things, but I just remember always wanting to, have a voice that mattered, and that played out in a couple different ways. Well, when The Bachelor came, people have to realize, and I don't say this to be self-deprecating, but I was living in Peru because of a breakup. I moved back to Indiana, was living with my parents after college. It's all after college, that year after college. And my boss at the time, I was kind of like working more of a volunteer job. And my boss at the time said, Ben, you need to get out. Like she just told me, she said, you've got too much to offer to stay here and do this for too much longer. And so her brother was a president of a company out here in Denver, Colorado. And she called him up and he hired me. And I was working a job I was not good at. I was testing like financial services software. And as somebody that wants to share a voice or talk and interact and have a seat at the table, like sitting in a basement writing user manuals was not exactly like my skill set. Some people's, not mine. I was really bad at it. And I knew I was bad at it. And so I was feeling this kind of like I was a charity case in the sense of this guy had given me this job, keeping me around because he'd given me a job and I wasn't bringing much to the table. And so one day, a lady at my office came to me and she said, hey, The Bachelor is doing trials in downtown Denver today. Would you go? And I said, why do you think I should go? And she says, well, I think I was 25, you're single, you're not dating, you don't really know anybody in Denver. You obviously aren't thrilled with the job that you have right now. You need life shook up a bit. You need life changed up a bit. I said, well, I'm not going to a casting call, but not against doing the show. It sounds like it could create a story, if anything else. And so we signed me up that day online. They called and the process started. And it was about a 6-month process. And I ended up on The Bachelorette, and The Bachelorette led me then to become The Bachelor. It feels like a distant memory now because so much of life has moved on in those just a few short years since then. But I would say that when you go back to the calling piece, it felt like an opportunity for me. Without an agenda, just an opportunity to create a story that was worth talking about at a dinner table even. At that point, I didn't have many of those. And so The Bachelor, I thought, well, they could at least give me something to talk about.
Go back to what you said about having a seat at the table. I'm really fascinated by that. And even how that played into your story.
Yeah.
What did that mean for you? And how did that even inform your desire to step into this opportunity? I mean, what was going on in your heart as a man at the time, I guess?
Yeah. I'm an only child. I think that probably plays into it a bit. Great parents.
Yeah.
But when I say I wanted to see at the table, I think I just wanted to feel like I mattered. And rightfully or wrongfully, I thought that being able to, maybe you call it in my unhealthiest moments, feel important, felt like something that would fulfill a void that I had. Now, flash forward to today, I would say that wouldn't fulfill a void, but it was something that I thought would. I thought it would be a fix. But it started out as that desire to be important, to matter, to have a purpose, to have people maybe look at me for storytelling, involvement, guidance, whatever it would be. I thought that was going to would fill up something inside of me that I was missing. And so it started as that. And I think it was probably the same intention going on the show, was that desire to feel important.
Mm-hmm.
And then The Bachelor happens, and I have, even if you hate the show and you think it's the goofiest thing ever, like it or not, like you get a following from it, and
Sure.
people start to criticize you. So they obviously care a little bit about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They start to praise you. They start to take interest in the life that you're living and the things that you're wearing. And through that experience, my mindset changed a lot about what it was I was missing. It wasn't the desire to be important. It was the desire to be connected. Um,
Yeah.
but I think I went about the path to figuring that out in maybe an unhealthy way, but it worked. I mean, it's working still. Or I'm working on it still.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit, because even the subtitle of your book is When You're Seen But Not Known. And I think all of us in life have a desire, as you said, for connection, to be known inside of ourselves, to be appreciated just for who we are inside our true identity. Yet there, especially, and I don't want to generalize, but maybe it is the case for many guys listening today, a lot of our worth and a lot of our value is determined by how we perform, how we achieve. And so here you are, you step on the show,
Yeah.
millions of people see you every single Monday night, but few know you. I want to hear about you being seen but not known, and really how you're working against that today, and maybe even start with how you worked against that on the show.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with you. The more, I've came out with this book in February, and the more people that read it, the more people say, "Hey, I felt the same way."
Mm,
Um, I don't want to generalize either, but I would say most people have had a moment in their life where they felt alone,
for sure.
or they felt pushed aside or disconnected from friends, family, jobs, relationships, etc. So I do think it's a problem that most of us could relate to. For me personally, I was on a show unexpectedly, and I think a lot of my background has to play into this. Is I don't have a unique skill set that brought me on The Bachelor. I didn't work my whole life to be on The Bachelor. It's maybe the best thing career-wise and relationally that I've ever done. But it took no effort for me to get there. It was luck of the draw, or why they cast me, I don't know. And so you don't have a lot of pride in it. You don't have a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in it. You kind of are. It feels like a dream. You're kind of confused on why. I mean, at least I was confused on why I was there and how this all happened. And so one of the things that happened very early on was I was in this room, especially in The Bachelorette, with a group of men who were former athletes, business owners, doctors, lawyers, highly successful professionals, great looking people, tall, and and I felt like I didn't belong. And the big reason for that was I didn't really have a story to share, and I didn't have a lot to lean back on. And so I felt like in order to belong, I had to be something different. I had to speak up when I felt like I could and say the right thing to make people laugh or to make people like me. I had to stay quiet in situations that maybe I wouldn't relate with, or maybe that were confrontational, or maybe that were getting too difficult. I would be a wallflower in most moments, waiting for the opportunity to say 2 or 3 things strategically so that I wouldn't be forgotten and pushed aside. And so as a result, I was acting upon this narrative in my head that, hey, I don't belong here. And so as a result, if nobody gets to know me, they're going to like me more. And if people get to know me, maybe they won't like me. But at least internally, I could make the excuse that if nobody gets to know me and they don't like me, then they just never got to know me. So of course they're not going to like me. So I was playing this game with myself. And I think this environment was kind of the vacuum that I needed to show me just how much I was hiding, or just how insecure I was. So it would be brought to my attention that I'd have to do something. I mean, it happened, I talked about in the book, but it happened one day when a producer came to me and said, "But I don't like you." So what do you mean you don't like me? Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever told me they don't like me. Now, they might have said it behind my back, but they've never told me it to my face. He goes, "I don't like you because I don't know you. You don't let anybody get to know you. Nobody here knows you." He goes, so how do you expect me to like you if I don't know you? So it was reversing all the strategy I'd put into this, all the acting I thought I could do to make this whole thing work. It was making me confront it. And what it was actually doing is it was making me confront how I was living most of my life today to that date. So I had to sit down with him then for 4 hours and talk to him about why it was I was hiding from him, why it was I was hiding from the rest of the people on the show, why it was that I was hiding from myself. And then when I finally did that, he gave me a hug. He says, now I like you. And I just thought, what a really beautiful moment where maybe also for the first time in my life, somebody said it took time to actually try to get to know me. And then at the end, they said, I still want you around.
Flip that, pivot that for the listeners right now. So for the people listening who have said, I'm doing, and maybe have never heard, I want you around. How would you distill that experience that you had with the producer of The Bachelor and even what you learned through that and speak to the listeners to say, this is what matters. This is where to focus. Throw out the distractions.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's individual story is different, but here's the truth.
Yep.
All of us have a unique story to tell. All of us have something to bring to the table. All of us do have a seat at the table. And unless we're willing to openly share that with not only ourselves, but with the people around us, we're never going to be even close to being known. And so through the distractions or through life's insecurities or through life's moments or through situations that we feel like we don't belong, the truth is, that we can actually connect with more people in those moments through our shared pains, our shared insecurities, than we can by trying to perform. And so what I would do for the listeners, or even for myself, as I speak into myself right now too, would be in the moments that matter the most, which might be every moment of every day that we get here. What about our stories? What about the things we've been through, the situations that we've been confronted with? What about those things have taught us who to be today? And also then how those lessons help us relate with those that are in the room with us in that moment? I would summarize it and say it's a healthy level of vulnerability. Now, vulnerability comes within relationships in the best of ways. But vulnerability, I believe, can also be shown in the grace and the mercy that you show those around you when you know they're hurting, even if they aren't acting like it, even if they're protecting themselves. That that little hint of, I'm not going to judge you, I'm not going to push you down any farther, I'm not going to criticize you anymore. I know you're hurting, even though you're putting on a good front right now. I know you're hurting because I know life brings pain, and I know that pain sometimes is hard to deal with. But because of my life experience and things that I've gone through, I can at least healthily assume that you're hurting, and I can show you the grace and the mercy that you deserve and that you need right now because of where I've been.
It's really powerful, Ben. So going forward, even to swing back into the show, that season of your life on The Bachelor, as The Bachelor, has the potential to then define how the world sees you. They put you in the box, they put you in the silo, so to speak. How do you feel about that?
I mean, well, we're a few years later now, and I think people still best know me as The Bachelor on season 20 of The Bachelor. How do I, that's a good question. The Bachelor puts you in a box because people watch you on television date. My tagline for my season was the perfect Ben, which set me up for failure from the very first commercial because it's nothing I can live up to. So I'm going to disappoint. Expectations are going to be high and I'm going to fall short of them. And so the box that I was put in is one that I felt like was expecting me to be something greater than I could be on my own. The box also was, given the titles that were given to me, right? Christian, from the Midwest. People assume certain things about you. And so the box also gets smaller and smaller as people see the life that you're living. And what doesn't happen in those moments is they don't ask the behind the scenes. They don't ask your story. They don't ask the why to what you believe or what has gotten you there. That's something over the last few years that I've gotten super curious about, and that I've, in a sense, kind of made my new career on is, and what you're doing is digging a little bit deeper than the titles that are placed on us, because the titles never live up to the whole story.
Right.
And personally, see if I can say this correctly, I don't know if my life could be labeled and titled correctly. I don't think there's any label or title that could go on my life today that would fully consume not only the faith, the heart, the doubt, and the hope I have for Jesus, but also the complexities and the intricacies of that, and what's led me to even say those words confidently. So titling me anything and put me in a box just feels weak. It feels disconnected. It feels insufficient.
It feels insufficient. I think that's really helpful to say that. And I want to say to people listening today, you can dodge the boxes that society and culture would want to place you in. But just to echo what Ben just said, guys, I think the key for us to recognize is that when our identity is rooted and grounded in Christ and our firm foundation is there, that will help mitigate some of the stress and the confusion that can come when people try to put us into boxes. And so, Ben, I'd love to even ask, here you are, probably the fishbowl, the box that everyone can see when you're on national television every Monday night. What was your dialogue with the Lord like? Like walking through your identity, your relationship with him, the conversations you have with him. Number one, to stay grounded and rooted in the foundation of Jesus. But number two, just to be able to have the self-awareness and emotional and mental capacity to stay stable throughout the day. Like what was that like with the Lord while you're living through the fishbowl lens of the public?
Well, for me, it was great. And here's how. Life was fairly comfortable for me. I understand that. Great family. My dad has a good job. Very great hometown. Moved to Denver and was given a job. Had my own apartment. Didn't worry about much. And picked friends that agreed with me on most things. I go into this environment and that all kind of gets switched on its head. Not that it was as uncomfortable in the living situation, but I'm meeting people from all over the world with all different beliefs and all different ideas and all different stories. People that I had never been exposed to in my life from different places in the world I'd never been exposed to. People that had lost parents, people that had sick children already. And what ended up happening is my comfort started to break away for really the first time. I started to have to reach out for something. And a friend of mine who is a very prominent pastor in Atlanta had kind of told me like, hey, when you're at the end of your rope, instead of trying to climb back up, you're tired and it's impossible, let go and see where God was holding on. And it's kind of what happened then. My prayers became very simple during that time. And my prayers became a lot more often during that time. They maybe look like this: God, I don't know what to do right now. Help me see what to do. God, I'm angry right now. Help bring peace. God, I'm confused right now. I need you more than ever. They became very simple. But the one thing that happened at the time, and I do remember this, and I had a journal, it's somewhere around here too. My prayers became a lot more consistent. Like they were kind of like they were in a sense, like inside of my breath. Like they were all the time. That's not common for me. I don't want anybody to hear this and be like, oh, wow, that Ben, he really gets it. Yeah. No. Don't think that for a second. But when I was grasping for something, the only answer I knew and the only place I knew to turn was to pray consistently. God, help me walk through this moment. God, be with me in this moment. God, show me what is desired in this moment. God, and I have to say, like, I never felt alone in those moments. Even though you're on a show with 200 people filming you at all times, a big camera everywhere you turn, no friends involved, trying to build romantic relationships with way more people than is humanly possible, and trying to do it in a way that was not only God honoring, but honoring to those who would watch it and to the women involved. So there's a lot of prayer during that time, and a lot of consistent checking in with myself, my intentions, and then where I was at.
What was it like to date on television? I mean, take us inside that, because you said that. I went, okay, I want to know how this breaks down mechanically.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad, quite honestly. One is,
even though you had a camera, you knew you had a camera looking at
you
you.
get kind of used to that. That's not that hard after a while. I think.
Okay.
The way I went through it, and I got a lot of good advice before the show from friends and family and people I trust.
Yeah.
I looked at these relationships, especially early on, as, hey, I just want to get to know these people. Like, nothing else. Like, let's take the end of this off the table. There's a cool opportunity here where, 30 people are going to show up, and I'm going to get the opportunity to know them personally, and ask them questions that are intentional, and talk to them about some of their biggest pains in life and their biggest joys in life and who they are as people and what makes them tick. Like, that's, in a sense, exciting. You don't get a lot of opportunity for that in life. So if you look at it that way, it started out fine. Well, then you start to develop feelings, and you start to develop feelings for more than one person. And that gets really hard to navigate. It gets really, like, mentally tiring, because you feel like you feel often like you're being deceptive, or that you're manipulating. In a sense, you kind of have to manipulate the situation. You have to not let everybody else know how you feel about somebody else. You can't really let that person know. And so you're always picking the right words to say again. You're always spending equal amount of time. And that got hard towards the end. And then the hardest part is watching it back, man. You got to watch that back with your grandma. Like, that's awful. Like, that's, I still remember the moment. I sat down next to her on a couch, and there's this kissing scene, and they do the up close view, which is hard enough to watch yourself. And then the audio really picks up, and you can hear it. And my grandma's sitting next to me. I'm like, nobody should have to go through this. Like, not one human should ever have to watch themselves multiple times with their grandma sitting next to them. But again, I guess it's the short straw I drew.
All right. So no one else is listening. It's just me and you, guy to guy. Listen, as soon as you were talking about this feels manipulative and messing with people's emotions, and you're trying to mitigate, oh my gosh, I have feelings for multiple people. What's that like, and how do you do it? I mean, it's just kind of a new perspective I've never thought about for the show.
Yeah. What's that like? Well, what it's like is exactly like you said. It's strategically dating. It's strategically building situations and having certain type of conversations to bring the most emotion out, so that maybe these relationships can flourish, or maybe you realize they're not, right? Like, somebody, you ask them their biggest issues in life, and maybe you're not connecting on a level that maybe you don't agree on something they're saying. You have to let them go after they just spill their heart out to you. That's hard.
It's hard.
You break up with people over and over again for the 3 months that you're there. Now, so that part of it is exactly like you said. It feels like it, and it is that. Like, you are consistently manipulating
for sure.
Now, when you're laying in bed at night and you're processing through the day's activities, I would say the bigger feeling, and maybe this is where maybe some audience members could relate, it's more disorienting and complex, because you can't make sense of most of the things you're doing, because you've, in a sense, forgotten how you're manipulating situations, and there's so much chaos going on in your mind, and there's so much confusion. And I think for me, there was nothing clear in my head for weeks during that process because of how much I was trying to get through. And I think maybe that's what people can relate. Like when you have too much going on, and you have too many secrets to hide, or you have too many things pushed down, and you're trying to remember the right words to say and what you told the person last time because you're lying to them a bit to try to make the situation. It gets really tiring. It gets exhausting. And I think that's how I felt.
Well, and I love that you went here in the book, and folks, you can go to wintoday.tv/episode 252 right now. Again, Ben Higgins, Alone in Plain Sight, searching for connection when you're seen but not known. Ben, you spent some time in your book deconstructing culture's fairy tale view of love. Walk us through that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's from my own personal experience too, is I am deeply in love with my fiance today. She is an incredible human. And she's made my life better in every way. And something that, I've had to explain to her is this relationship that we have is nothing but exciting for me. And here's why. I remember the middle school relationships. Euphoria comes over you. You can't stop thinking about that person. Same thing in high school, same thing in college, same thing in some of my early adult relationships. The world stops and it's puppy love and it's exciting and there's a momentum to it and sparks are flying. And I had that with Jessica, my fiance now. But over time, those moments become less. Now they still happen, right? Jessica walks down, the stairs in a dress for a date night, and all of a sudden, I'm walking through the front door and I see her and I'm like, whoa, like my world stopped. But I think from the people I've been able to talk to, a lot of the world today thinks that euphoric feeling is love and should be love and should be there at all times forever. So when it fades, you're left asking the question, what's left? And for me, what I've realized is what's left is a commitment, a beautiful commitment where I've allowed another human to get to know me, to sit with me in my pains, to sit with me in my frustrations. I want to do the same for her. This love is now a commitment, an exciting commitment where new opportunities are coming up and forming. But that fairy tale idea, if that's what you're holding on to, you're going to be greatly disappointed. And I think it also forces us to ask the question, what exactly are we looking for? Are we looking for the most physically attractive person that doesn't really care about us at all, but at least they look good? Are we looking for the person that's just going to allow us to have the most fun and freedom? You have to start prioritizing what exactly it is that you want in a partner, and finding somebody that will make you a better human tomorrow than you were today, will help push you forward, and not only your love for them, but most especially your love for the God above. Now, that's not easy. And I say that saying within that is a lot of difficulty and a lot of tough conversations and a lot of moments of what feels like a ripping apart at all of your preconceived assumptions at what you thought love was going to look like. So I speak a lot about that. And I speak a lot about within that, the vulnerability or the connection we can make within relationships where we become naked and unashamed in front of our partners. And that's a weird analogy to use also, but I say the same thing with good friendships. And when I say naked and unashamed, but I don't mean physically naked. I mean ripping away the things that we've hid from the world or the things that we've covered up from the world and allowing yourself to be fully you and fully human in front of somebody that matters to you and allow them to accept you for who you are, not just who you are today, but who you're forming into tomorrow and who you're working on today, who you want to become tomorrow.
I absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, I absolutely love that you said naked and unashamed, because that is Genesis. The Lord said of Adam and Eve, they were in the garden and they were naked and unashamed. And so this is so primitive inside of our anthropology as human beings.
Yeah.
The deep wiring by God Almighty to be naked and unashamed. And so I'd like to say to someone listening today that perhaps the thing that keeps you from the thing that you really, really want is actually a false identity of shame that says you are uniquely and fatally flawed. And as such, Ben, what does shame cause us to do? Hide.
Mm. Yeah.
We
It
hide
does.
inside ourselves, inside the fear, inside the false identities, the lies, all of that. So I appreciate you saying exactly that, because we can extend this to all of our relationships. Back to your original point of we are wired for connection, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what does hiding do? It forces you to be alone. And
Yes.
the more we hide, the more alone we're going to feel, because maybe the more alone we are.
Mm.
And so when we take that step out of the shadows and into the world and say, I'm coming to this world with pains, with sorrows, with mistakes, with insecurities, with shame, and with guilt. I'm stepping into the world knowing I don't want to continue down a path of that, even though I will. But that's not a path I want to continue to foster and grow in and use it as an excuse. But when you walk into it, knowing that most people as well are walking into the world with those things, it helps connect us. And maybe today more than ever, we need a lot of people walking out saying, I know I've messed up, or I know I have an insecurity here and it's played out in this way. But it's no longer going to force me to hide in the shadows because I can't be alone any longer. Then we can connect through something beautiful. And I think what we can connect to is our shared pains and our shared sorrows, which is what Alone in Plain Sight, really, if you break it down, is all about.
Yeah.
Is maybe the biggest thing that we can connect in is our shared pains and our shared sorrows, because we all have them. We're all going to die. That's one thing. And then life's hard, and we're going to have issues. And to assume that you're not is not being responsible to yourself, and to assume that others aren't hurting also is not being responsible to them. And so what does it do for us as humans as we walk into environments and relationships and with people, knowing that at some level they're hurting and some level we're hurting? And what if we gave them the opportunity to still be welcomed? What would that do for us? What if we gave them the space to still walk out in front of us and say, hey, I'm going to love you no matter what. Like, I'm going to be here for you no matter what. In addition to all of this, though, I do want to add, and one of my favorite parts of the book that impacted me the most was a part that I wrote, and it was really written early on because I knew I wanted to include it, on singleness. Because we can sit here and talk about romantic relationships, and that's great. But one thing I do think that the church as a whole has struggled with is how they confront and how they speak to those that are single. Because I think what we've done in those environments, and I think it came from good intentions, wanting to see, it's exciting to see somebody fall in love and get married and make that commitment. It is. But what happens is in the church setting, we've oftentimes made that a priority to where those that are single feel like they're pushed aside and they don't belong. And what I want to write about in the book is to say, if you're single and you're waiting and you're wanting a relationship, don't stop dating. Put yourself out there. You deserve that. But if you're single and you're saying, I'm not really into it, like I don't have that desire, you're still valuable, like incredibly valuable. In fact, Paul would say that you maybe have more opportunities than those, different opportunities than those that would be in relationship, because you have time, you have energy, you have a massive capacity to build relationships. And what I want to do with the book is just share how beautiful it is for those that are single and let them feel lifted up, because I think they should.
Singleness is not a disease to be cured. You said it in your book, and I was going to go there, but you took us there anyway. Any other thoughts on exactly that? Because I think this really pokes the box of the narratives of shame.
Yeah.
For those that are single. But again, folks, I want to remind you all, Ben, as you alluded to, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, Paul says, listen, my desire for you is not to introduce any additional complication. And he's not dogging marriage, nor is he dogging singleness. He's saying my desire for you is undistracted devotion to Jesus. So whether you're married or single, let that be the focus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's one of my favorite lines from the book. And
Yeah, I loved it.
is singleness is not a disease need to be cured. It's not at all. And we've treated it like it. Why aren't you dating? What's
Uh-huh.
wrong with you? Can I set you up with somebody? Um, you know, and it's been a common thing that we've all heard and felt, especially in our single years. And a lot of times in those single years, I wasn't ready to be a good partner. Or at some point in my life, I had to get to the point where I called my parents and I said, hey, like, I want you to know I might be single forever and
Mm.
I'm okay with it. Now, not always easiest for parents who want grandkids to hear, especially when you're an only child,
Yeah.
but they had to rally around that and they did. And then I met Jessica and I said, no, no. Like, I am ready. Like this is good. But I had to get to a place in my life where I became confident that, yes, my devotion was to Jesus. And my devotion was to love God and love others as
Come on.
best I could. And I thought the best I could right then during that season was to be single. Now, that's changed in my life, and I'm very glad it did. But
Mm-hmm.
also during that time, the last thing I needed personally was for anybody else to make me, again, a charity case and say, hey, how can I fix you? Or who could fix you? Who
Mm-hmm.
could I bring into your life that you would be able to date and be fixed by? And so if you broke it down, what I really want to do is eliminate the um, the non-truth and elevate the truth that singles matter. They're wonderful and purposeful and beautifully made, and they
Mm-hmm.
belong. And there's nothing wrong with you if you're single. In fact, it's an incredible opportunity.
Mm. I appreciate that, Ben, very much. All of that leads to this. Then, how did you know Jessica was the one? Because I find it really interesting where you said to your parents, hey, I may be single my whole
Yeah.
life. The Bachelor happens because Jessica was totally detached from your experience on The Bachelor, right?
Oh, completely.
And you
Yeah,
met
she's never
her.
seen the season,
Walk
and
us through that.
yeah, she's never seen the season. She has no desire, and
She
I
never
have no
saw it.
desire. Never saw it, and I'm so thankful
Wow.
for that. Yeah, that's really good. The only thing she's ever seen from it was, unfortunately, ABC had last year had us on an episode, and during like the entry to Jessica and I doing our conversation, they showed highlights from my season, and so she had to see some stuff that I
Mm,
don't think she loves seeing, and I don't blame her. But
sure.
how did I know Jessica was the one?
Yeah.
Well, I met her on Instagram. I messaged her, and she brought this up last night. We were talking. We went to dinner with my pastor and his wife, and
Yeah.
uh, somehow she brought this up, and I had kind of forgotten this, but it is the moment that I knew something was special here. I had gotten out of church, and I have a lot of issue. I am a critic, and I don't love it about myself. I also don't hate it either. It's kept me curious. But something was said about generosity at church that Sunday that just didn't fit right with me, and it
Mm,
didn't sit right with what I thought was true. And we had been texting at that point for like a week, and I texted her a question based on what I was feeling, because she was at that point the one person I was kind of talking to, and I was like, yeah, this will be fun. And she voice memos me back with her answer, and her answer was not only like confrontational on what I was saying, but also well thought through. She obviously cared, and I was like, either this girl's putting on a really good face to do this, or like this girl's special. And
wow.
so then she came out to Denver, and we did our first date, and we sat at a table and we ate fries and we drank wine for 2.5 hours, and we talked about God and we talked about life.
Mm,
And I remember at that moment it hit me, and she said she felt the same way. I was like, either this is going to be the most beautiful thing in my life, or it's going to hurt me deeply. Um, and at that moment, I
mm,
realized that she was the one. I think because
mm,
ever since then, there was not this like aha moment, maybe like, oh my gosh, here it is. Yep, this she. It was a consistent reminder in how she treated me, how she spoke to me, how she treated my friends and my family, the interest that she took in helping me be a better man,
Mm.
that just showed me like this is a partner to me for life. I hope she would say the same thing, but there was never a doubt, maybe would be the better way. Like there was never a moment of, I don't know if this is going to work. It was a consistent reminder of like, I am lucky to have a person like her in my life forever. So that was the moments was just those consistent reminders that this is who she is.
Ben, I think one of the things as I'm listening to you and kind of adding these bits of your story together in our conversation today, I think one of the things I admire about you is I sense a teachable spirit. And I think what I want to say to people joined with us today is that one of the things that I believe will unlock our ability to step into a place of convergence in life, uh, expressed purpose in life, is when we have a teachable spirit to those in our life, but also before the Lord. And I think that's probably one of the things that allowed you to move through these different seasons of life and grow and learn, because it takes me back to a point you shared in your book. Um, it was in college. I think it was your junior year, if I read correctly. You were in your bathroom. Something had happened, I guess, that evening. You looked at yourself in the mirror and you said, "This is not the man you ever dreamt of being. You're a fraud."
Mm-hmm.
What was happening inside yourself at that time? Like, how did you respond to that experience to set you up to what was ahead?
Yeah, you're right. No, so what happened was I was in college and I had walked down a path of destruction,
Mm.
um, of just mistreating people, bringing them in, pushing them out, bringing them in, pushing them out, and and then at the same time, still having that internal desire to have a seat at the table and to matter and to be able
Mm.
to share to build up wisdom and grace and love for others. Yet everything about me was not doing that. So I walk into the bathroom and I always kind of joke about this, but I recommend it. If you ever look at yourself in the mirror, like actually look into your eyes in the mirror, it's a really creepy thing. And I did it that moment for whatever reason. And I remember that coming to my head is like, you're not who you want to be. And not just that you're not who you want to be, because if I left it there, it'd be like, okay, that's fine, I'll get better. It's you're not going anywhere in the direction of anybody you ever want to be.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
you're not treating people like you would have ever wanted to treat them. And so what I thought at the time was like, you're a fraud, you're faking this. And I
Mm.
was. And I had to, and you say teachable spirit. I think one of the reasons that you might say that, and I would hope that to be true, but one of the reasons would be I've been wrong so many times in my life, um, to where it's hurt people in the process and hurt myself,
Mm.
that at some moment you need to go open up your hands and say, like, I need to be more curious, or I need to stop assuming, or I need to stop acting like I have it all together. And when I did that, a beautiful thing happened. I allowed myself the space and the opportunity to learn, to grow,
Mhm.
to say, okay, if I'm going to call myself a fraud to my face, looking myself in the eyes now, how do I move forward? If that's true, how do I become, how do I get out of that? Or how do I stop feeling this way? What can I do? What things can I eliminate, or what ways can I treat people better, just so to where I can stand confidently in front of me and say, I'm trying my best. Uh, where at moments I can say, well done. I don't think I could have said that at that point.
Mm.
And so what was going on in my spirit was just this. Um, it was the first moment I think I'd recognized it, and when I did, everything changed, because I didn't want to live a life. I didn't want to be known as a guy that lived a life of destruction. I want to be known as somebody,
Hmm.
um, that offered more love, I guess, than that.
I want to swing back early into your story because this brings up another point that you and I chatted about before we hit record here today. Being seen, being known also connects to, I'd say primarily connects to a foundation of identity in Christ. Now, Jesus said, love your neighbor what? As you love yourself. And there's a place of confidence in who we are in Christ, where we're able to release the bonds of fear and shame and guilt and all those things. So I want to swing this back, because I'm listening to you share your life story, and I'm going, oh, this is fascinating to see how the Lord has just threaded his spirit through your life and taught you in these different seasons. So let's go back. That core sense of being seen but not known, I believe, is a form of innate rejection. It's not what I have or haven't done. It's just me. I'm not enough. That goes back to grade school, Ben, when you were left alone without a reading partner. As I told you before we hit record here, man, that hit me, because the exact same thing happened to me in grade school as a little boy. So as a man now, engaged, that early wound might still speak to your soul, or try to. So the question is, does it? And if it does, how does it manifest today as a man? Like, you get into certain circumstances and that little clamoring voice says, oh, you must not have what it takes. You must just not be enough. That's why you're here.
Yeah. Well, so the story you're talking about is really one of the first stories I share in the book, if not the first. And it's a story that for some might be found humorous, but for me has impacted me deeply. And I just wonder how many other people have had childhood experiences, probably most more traumatic than my story, but still impactful. And what happened was, we were in reading class, and the teacher said, hey, it's time for partner reading. Everybody partnered up and nobody chose me. And I remember this moment of sitting in the corner going, nobody likes me. Nobody wants me around. Now, that feeling, that emotion is one I still remember sitting in the corner feeling that way.
Sure.
And maybe the reason I remember it is because that feeling is not foreign to me now either. It's been a narrative and a small little voice inside my head since that moment. And that's why I shared about in the book, is at 32, and, you know, a lot more life experience since then. That little voice of saying, like, nobody's picked you, you don't belong, is something that still echoes in my unhealthiest moments. The difference today compared to then, and compared to maybe even 10 years ago, is I can now recognize that voice and see and hear it, and recognize it and say it's just not true. And not just push it aside because it still has an impact on me, but develop tools to speak truth into myself in those moments. No, I do belong. No, what this saying is not true. This has been a piece of evil and destruction that's been placed on you for many years of your life. You can't live in the narrative that nobody wants you around. And that's been the biggest, yes. So to answer your question, yes, I still feel today. The difference now is that I think in the same breath that we spoke about earlier, like, I can come to the table now naked and unashamed and say, no, I know this is a piece of me. I don't want this to be my narrative.
Yep.
I recognize that it's a piece of me, but I need to work through it.
It's really helpful, Ben. Hey, finish this sentence. I wish more people blank.
Ooh, well, I think it's going to mind. I wish more people recognize the miracle it is that we're sharing breath on this earth in this moment at this time together today.
That's awesome. I love to ask this question. What's the first thought you had this morning when you woke up?
Oh, dude, you don't want to know this. We like I said, we went out to dinner last night. My pastor's Cuban, and we went to some Cuban restaurant, and we had 3 platters of like meat and rice, and we ate until like 10 o'clock at night. So I woke up this morning and said, I need 2 Tums because I've got heartburn.
Yes, brother. Listen, come to Detroit. I will show you some of the best Cuban food. Man, it's unreal. I'm addicted to Cuban food, man.
It was my first interaction with it last night, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
But Cubans, I guess, I don't know. That place was rocking and rolling late, and they were bringing out platters of meat and plantains. And man, my 32-year-old self felt it today a little bit.
Yes, sir. So good, man. Hey, is there a question you wish more people asked you, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I wish more people asked me why. Um, I think it shares and shows a level of curiosity. I think it gives people the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
I think especially when the why comes from a place of grace and understanding, the question's really intriguing is, hey, I woke up this morning sad and disconnected, or hey, I woke up this morning joy filled, and why?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be it.
That's good. Well, again, folks, wintoday.tv/episode 252, Ben Higgins, the book Alone in Plain Sight, Searching for Connection when you're seen but not known. Ben, anything else today? I've just really loved this candid conversation with you about being seen, being known, and dumping the facade of shame that so entraps too many of us.
Yeah, it's always healthy, especially to end something with a bunch of platitudes. But a couple platitudes that I think are very true.
Mm.
One, if you're listening and you're hearing all this and you're saying, I feel disconnected right now, or I feel alone. I do hope that you pick up the book Alone in Plain Sight.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, even if you never do that, I just hope that you recognize that you are a miracle, that we're on this earth, that you have breath, that you have purpose, that you matter.
Yes.
And sometimes in my life, sharing those things that kind of can go in one ear and out the other, are the most helpful because they're simple and they're true. Is that if you're here right now, you matter deeply, and we need you to be a community maker and a love giver, and somebody that helps come to the table and sit and share your story and your wisdom. So that's how it ended.
So good. Ben, I'd love for people to just find you, stay connected to you, to what you're
Yeah.
doing these days. Tell me about how to do that.
They can go to higgins.ben on Instagram. That's my most active social media platform.
Cool.
You can also find me. I have a show that's coming out called Hope Still Wins, where I get to interview people that I just like are amazing thought leaders and thinkers on the idea of hope, if it exists, if it ever exists, if it wins, if it's ever won at all. That's another way. The next way is through Generous International, which is a coffee company my buddies and I started. And we're a for-profit company, but luckily, based on life's gifts, we've been able to all sign over our names so that any profit from the company, the value of the company, or profit from the product is 100% donated to nonprofits around the world. And that's my really full-time job. Like when I'm not talking or doing something else, Generous is my main focus. And so you can go out, if you drink coffee, go to generouscoffee.com, buy some coffee. It'd be a huge help.
Yeah, I'll actually put a link to that in the show notes, guys. Again, wintoday.tv/episode 252. Ben, I've loved it. I've loved this conversation. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Hey, thanks for having me, and keep up the good work.
You bet.
I look forward to continue listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben.